Hi everyone, welcome back. Welcome to this episode. Can't wait to get started. We have a very exciting guest today. His name's Brendan. Hi Brendan.
Hello.
Just going to let Brendan have a quick introduction about himself and sort of his company, and then we'll get started and have a detailed chat.
Okay, thank you. So basically, as you said, my name is Brendan Walker. I'm from Doncaster. Education-wise, I studied for a National Diploma in Graphic Design, a degree in Visual Communication, and a MA in Design Enterprise at Doncaster College. And now the Digital Marketing Team Lead for EMEA for a company called Insight, based in Sheffield. A brief background of the company is they were traditionally a reseller of IT products, which is now transitioning to a software as a service or solutions selling company. Still keeping the products as a sort of backbone of the company, but we're more definitely involved in the solution side of things.
So sounds quite detailed.
Yeah, so we kind of knew the margins within product selling were limited, whereas now software as a service is that the possibilities are endless. We can map computers for companies that need them in a specific setup. And we can deliver them on demand and scale up or down as needed. So it really is a sort of an open box there.
It sounds definitely interesting and sounds like it's busy.
Oh, yeah, definitely busy. I mean, yeah, they've just launched their first intellectual property, which is based on Microsoft Teams or in the Office 365 suite.
Yeah.
But there's definitely more to come, and there's a lot of scope for companies to branch out and create their own niche areas within that service.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, now we've sort of got a bit of a background into yourself and your company. Let's dive into marketing and sort of your role and what you think of marketing and where it's going. All right, so with that being said, let's dive into marketing and talk about some marketing specific areas. So it sounds like obviously we've covered what you do. It sounds like you have a very diverse sort of role. What would you say that you focus on the most and do the most?
What I focus on the most from a day-to-day basis is the content management and the building of the campaigns and marketing collateral. That involves translations for 12 countries. So there's an undertaking of quite a big task to make sure that the original marketing plan that has been set up by the UK is then taken across to Germany, France, the Netherlands, etc. But also that entails looking into the tone of voice for the regions, because what we've definitely run into before is that what might work for a UK audience wouldn't necessarily work for the French, for example. It might come across as quite abrupt or, in some cases even rude. So the majority of my role is to make sure that content has a home to live on the website and that we get it down and it makes sense for the regions.
And do you have, when you sort of translate, how do you go about it? Do you research each country, or how do you know which country sort of want it?
It's been a long road that. So what we traditionally did is we have smaller offices in each region. I'll call them region, but country. And we used to send all the documents and collateral to that one or two people in France or Italy, and ask them to translate it on the fly. Now, what we found is obviously they can translate it into local language, but the edge is lost a little bit because of the lost in translation.
Yeah.
So we started to work with a translations company who would translate on our behalf, so really close to the original messaging, and then we send it over to the regions just for them to double check, make sure it makes sense, that there's nothing that shouldn't be in there. They sign it off, and then it comes back to the UK team or my team, where we can then roll out to the regions and put that content live.
Yep. I guess you can sort of make it even more narrow as well, like just talking about what you're speaking about, because even like if you're in the UK and people are targeting consumers, just for example, like the word bread cake or bap or roll, like even in our country, people communicate differently.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's definitely some regional differences, and we've run into a few things. So for example, one of ours would be cloud and data center transformation. The word cloud in Italy, what we would understand as software or online computing, actually literally translates to clouds in the sky.
Yeah.
So it creates a very confusing message when we're talking about sunny clouds on a website trying to talk about a software solution. So yeah, we've had a lot of learning curves on that. We've got it's kind of a library now of terms where we need to tweak them or move them so that we can try and avoid those issues.
Yeah. How would you sort of say for like a small company, if they're shipping worldwide or like to Europe, how can they sort of find the time to make their product like specific or suitable? I know that's a very vague.
No, yeah,
it's a big question.
No, yeah, I suppose for translation aspects is I would. If we're sending something to a target region, then I would probably, using us as the example, I would use the translation agency, and then I'd just get the target region to double check the language, make sure that there's nothing really odd in there, and just double check. I mean, we get reports back on translations, and the accuracy is at 96% now, so we're not too far away from. We can never be perfect, but we're as close as we can get to it, and that's where we want to be.
Absolutely. And then besides sort of translations and your content overseas, is there anything that you focus on in the UK as like separately?
Yeah, so in the UK we also look after the social media channels and run campaigns. So we primarily use LinkedIn Campaign Manager, and we target very specific audiences. So a little bit more background around that is that as Insight are a reseller traditionally, we work closely with our partners, so we can have anyone from Adobe to Microsoft, ArcServe, those kind of companies. They will give us part of their marketing budget to run marketing campaigns on their behalf. So we utilise LinkedIn a hell of a lot to help us with that.
Big responsibility to those companies.
Massively. I mean, the testament there is that we have won awards there. So we've got a global marketing award for Cisco for our services for their security offering. We've also been nominated for I think it was 4 LinkedIn awards for the marketing efforts of our teams, so it's a testament to that. But there's definitely it's a very varied role. Anything can come through the door from the partner, so that makes it really an interesting day-to-day job.
Yeah. And what made you distinguish LinkedIn as sort of the number one, or do you use Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well?
We did. So the only reason why we've differentiated it is because we are primarily business to business.
Yeah.
What we saw a lot of through Facebook was it's more consumer. Yeah. So I would say more B2C. So we were getting asked for if we sell Beats headphones through Facebook, and of course we answer those questions and we interact with those people, but primarily our target is people buying in large bulk or from business to business. So LinkedIn for us is the right fit. The audience growth is over 124% over the last 18 months, so it shows that we're going in the right direction there. And now our audience is just over 120,000 people in the UK and the EMEA regions, so it really helps.
Yeah, it's quite a big audience. I found I didn't realise the challenge sort of when I started, that B2B, getting your customers to see what your content is, because as a B2C company, like just from my personal experience, if you're scrolling down and you see Nike or Adidas or someone you like, you instantly like it because you want to keep up. But if you see a company that you've never heard of, then you're not going to like it, and it's hard to translate.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that is one of our biggest challenges, and I would say that's a big challenge moving forward. There's two things: is making your own company aware that marketing will need to have a budget and need to spend on it to raise awareness of who that company is.
Yeah.
And then B, you need to have your name out there to make people aware that you're there and that's what you're doing, creating that trusted persona.
Yeah.
For us, we really kind of, I won't say struggle, but it's a challenge to put our tone of voice out there for B2C because we are primarily business to business. The way I tackled that was we instigated a sort of process where we did a 3-for-1 rule, which is 3 trending news stories within our industry to one of our own sort of this is what we do posts. Yeah. So we interspersed that there, and that really helped grow our channel. And we still we do that, but we've dialed it back a little bit. So we're still doing, the trending topics, the tech shows, the conferences and things, and really having that kind of trusted advisor role.
Yeah.
And that's where we've kind of pushed it.
And do you find that you get more engagement on those like tech sides,
like
articles than your own products? Or
yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
It can be. But I mean, it's all par for the course with that. I mean, the engagement is great. If people are engaging on our channel, they're more likely to see us in future.
Yeah.
So personally, I would much rather we have people interacting on those sort of stories and going, hey, that sounds great. Is that something Insight are doing? And you can say, yeah, we're heading in that direction. It's a little bit more difficult when it comes to your bosses then saying, what's the ROI, or what's the return on investment of this spend? And you're
because they're clicking on your articles, but they're not clicking to purchase.
Well, we've kind of tried to change the terminology. So instead of having return on investment, we've renamed it return on value.
Yeah.
So what are those engagements worth to your company, rather than they've bought X amount sort of sense? How have they brought extra people to your business? That's the way we kind of twisted it. And it's been received really well with the senior leadership team at Insight. Our engagement is really good. We do track through Google Analytics, and we can see that social is part of the 7 touch point cycle, and a lot of money that has come through purchases can be attributed to social being one part of that journey. So that's a good area for us.
Yeah, I think that return on value conversion stands out because there's no bad blog post or there's no bad clicks on your website. It's all about building your brand, and it doesn't have to be sort of an initial sale.
Exactly, and there was something that really stood out for me when I first sort of started Insight. We ran a campaign and it had over 1 million views, and it had over 2,500 clicks, and the entire campaign was about £7,000 spent. And you take that to the leadership team at the time, and they say, "Is that good?" And that really is an eye opener, because you're like, well,
1 million, 1 million views.
I don't really know how else to describe it other than exceptional, but that was a real sort of eye opener for everyone. And at that stage, they've really, to their credit, they've really backed the marketing team there, and they've said, right, like if you're saying this is good, we want to learn. We've sat down with the guys, we've really sort of like mapped out where we're going with things, and everything's running really good.
Yeah. Just going to sort of move on to sort of new areas. So is there anything, like, obviously you're in a more of a seniority position than myself at the present. Is there anything that surprised you, or anything that you've shifted focus from now you've sort of moved up? Or
a little bit. I think what surprised me to start with is how there's, especially talking from my own experience, is a bit of a disconnect between what comes through from marketing and what goes through to the sales team.
Yeah.
So what we would consider to be a good lead isn't always the case for sales, and I think it's been a huge learning curve for us to understand what a salesperson would be looking for from a what you would call a qualified lead than what we were delivering. So a few years ago now, I'd say 3-4 years ago, we were looking at sending a lead over as soon as they downloaded a report. That's not the case anymore. They've downloaded a report, they've had 5 minutes on site looking at these 10 pages. All of that information is collected and sent to the salesperson, who can then have a much more informed chat with that person.
Yeah.
I think what was happening before was they were getting this lead and they were ringing this lead up and saying, hey, you've looked at this report, and the guy was like, what report? And then the salesperson's like, well, and it kind of falls down. So
it's a bit too aggressive and excited almost.
Yeah, so I think we now have sort of dialed that back and managed to give a lot more detailed information, and that really drives more meaningful conversations.
Yeah. And then let's also discuss if you think marketing sort of changed recently, or if you have any ideas where it's headed, just really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally think that marketing is changing. It's moving towards a more personalised experience.
Yep.
So that's delivering real-time content to somebody that is more relevant to their needs. And that's something that we're definitely looking into and investing heavily in. Things like real-time personalisation. So if we know a person's looked at cloud on our website before, we can then serve them cloud content the next time, knowing that they're interested in it. But I think as we move forward, that's definitely going to be more of an important sort of step, rather than sort of marketing to a mass. It's
just one post for everyone.
Yeah.
And especially if you figure out how to do it and you're good at it, chances are you're going to be much more successful targeting customers or groups specifically.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think if we personalised messages and we managed to put 10-15 pots in place rather than just one catch-all and hope for the best, then we're going to engage with a lot more people in a lot more meaningful ways, and that's definitely going to be a lot more value to us.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's not just your company that will, or any company that's going to value, it's the consumer as well. The consumer's seeing things that they want to see.
Yeah, exactly. We've had some really good feedback. We've got some things like the real-time personalisation I touched on. So some people that are already buying cloud software from us, they would then be served with, hey, you're using too much at the moment. Do you want to scale down? Do you want to scale up? There's all these options in place, and that really helps drive us forward and make that connection between us and our consumer really strong.
So you're almost putting their values and their needs first.
Yeah, I mean,
the message.
Yeah, we do tend to. So I guess you could call it, we take a bit more of a hit on the short term if we're going to bring people. If somebody's bought 100 licenses for Adobe and they're only using 50, then it really makes sense to bring that down. Now, eventually that trust is there then, that they know exactly what they need at any point, and they will trust us to manage that. And if they can trust us to do that, then our marketing team's done its job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about like the initial exposure. Yeah,
that's it. It's not going for the biggest amount of money. It's really about the long term and the relationship.
Yep. I think we'll sort of wrap this section up, try and keep in the 20-minute time slot, and then we're going to move on to some graduate advice. We're just going to chat about sort of graduates and sort of getting that first step into marketing for a couple of minutes to finish off. So first of all, how did you find it sort of from going from being a graduate and getting into your first role, and like how many jobs did you apply for? And
so I found it quite difficult going from graduate to finding the first role, purely because it was around 2008. That's when the recession was, so I timed it perfect.
Yeah.
And we sent. Well, I printed out around about 70 A5 booklets that I designed up, and they were all like, as I thought at the time, perfect.
Yeah.
Sent them out, and pretty much had maybe back from 10 people saying, "Oh, we'll add you to the list," or and I took a lot of learning from that, and at the time I was a bit disheartened, but. Actually, looking back on it now, I think it adds to you as a person moving forward. I ended up meeting someone through sending out the CVs, who said, hey, it was a great idea, it's just the wrong time. We're not looking, but someone else is. So it was kind of like networking. And I think for me, that's the most important takeaway is if there's any sort of contact that you know within the industry you want to be in, just, get in touch with them, see if there's anything that they can help you with. And network is so important. So I'd definitely do that.
Yeah, I think just like touching on what you've said and my experience as well, I don't think there's anything wrong with connecting on LinkedIn to industry experts or even someone you might know through a friend or a family member, and then based on like your brochures that you downloaded and spent effort on, if there is ways for people to be creative and do like a direct mail or an old school style approach, then try it, because everyone's going through those job sites and everyone's using Reed and Indeed and those platforms.
Definitely. That's the thing. I think, especially with LinkedIn, is if you don't already have an account, get one on there, add all your achievements to it. It becomes your online sort of business portfolio, your CV in a way, and you can open it up to recruiters who are also looking for, graduates, and they're looking for people that they can fit into these new roles. So if you're on there and your qualifications are there, I think you stand a good chance there. Yeah,
and then if you find like the right person or recruiter, they're doing your job for you potentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You tend to find a lot. I still get a few now because they keyword search LinkedIn. So if it's something specific that you want to be seen for, then that's something you need to put in your bio. And
that's
then,
a good point.
From there you can, get in touch with them, and it's all experience at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you get 5-10 interviews, you get more confident each time. It's just all about, being in the right place at the right time sometimes, but it's definitely a good start.
Yeah, and then just moving on to sort of a final question. Now that you're in a role where you're on the other side and you are the interviewer effectively, what would you look for in an interview if you were hiring?
Partly I'd say obviously the skills first. So if it's a specific role, then we'll look for that. But also, equally as important is how approachable somebody is when they come to the interview. We're looking for someone who's going to fit into a team, so they kind of have to, if they're going to fit into that team and our team's multicultural, then we need to be sure that they're not going to ruffle feathers as such, and that we're all going to get on, which is hunger, heart and harmony. So if we can find somebody that fits that bill, sometimes actually beats. Basically, I would say that skills are obviously important, but it's how you carry yourself as a person, and that can be just as important.
Yeah, if you essentially, if you had someone who was the best you could envision, but they're going to interrupt everyone else's workflow, then it's detrimental than picking someone who might not be as experienced but is going to fit in like a...
Exactly. That's on our training sessions, actually. Someone who's really qualified for the role but is actually a bad fit for the team is someone that, we'd probably look for someone else in that instance, even though they are super qualified for that skill. If they're going to cause problems within the team, then it's going to be worse for us in the long run, so we try and avoid that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've covered everything. We've definitely dove into some sort of deep topics. I think the one that stands out most is return on value for myself, but hopefully everyone is going to learn something from this episode. Thanks, Brendan, for joining me.
No problem.
And I'll see you all soon. Thank you.